In our health news, a new warning today about illnesses from food. But food poisoning seems to be on the rise. Cases have been reported from fast food restaurants and deli meats, prepared meals as well, obtained from grocery stores. To help us understand the cause of these illnesses and how to prevent them, because we don't want to get sick, we are joined by our medical expert, Dr. David Winter from Baylor Scott & White. Dr. Winter, what is going on with these infections?
Well, the medical term, Mark, actually is gastroenteritis. You said food poisoning. Some people call it the stomach flu, though influenza has nothing to do with it, so food poisoning is probably a better call for this. It's actually very common in this country. I've got a graph here that shows 218 million cases on average per year. 128,000 people need to be hospitalized and up to 10 deaths a year. Now, look at those numbers, though. The majority of folks do pretty well. They may have pretty severe nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramping, maybe some diarrhea, but usually after 2 or 3 days, it goes away. Now, of course, very young kids, very old senior folks that are frail, people with some kind of immune problems, they may have a worse case. Most folks are pretty sick, but not for very long.
You mentioned that gastroenteritis and that we kind of call it food poisoning in general, but as summer is here and we deal with cookouts and food safety, how much is this something that we have control over versus items that you're eating out and about?
Yeah, it's the bacteria that gets in the food is a problem. And lots of bacteria do this. There's E. coli, Campylobacter, Listeria, Salmonella, Toxoplasma, all those things kind of act the same there. So you want to stay away from the bacteria, and the foods most susceptible to that are primarily meats, so beef, chicken, turkey, pork, and then also fruits and vegetables. In fact, a recent big outbreak in some of the hamburger joint ventures out there was from onions, sliced onions. So a lot of things can harbor that bacteria, and that's what causes the problem.
I tell you what, I'm someone who really enjoys grilling, but I am not afraid to pull out that food thermometer because it is just not worth it. When you've got 10 hamburgers on the grill, you don't want anybody getting sick from one of them. But certainly that is one way, when you are cooking to get things to safe temperatures. Let's say you do find yourself sick, you're dealing with what you think may be a case of one of these nasty bugs you mentioned. What do you recommend doing next?
The biggest threat is dehydration, and so you want to try to get fluid in. We use nausea medication that sometimes can help. If you have diarrhea, we use pills to slow the diarrhea. You don't want to stop it because you're trying to get rid of that bad bacteria there, but to slow it down some. And if you just can't keep up, of course, that's when you need an IV fluids, and that's when you have to go to the hospital. But if you can sip water recurrently during the day, oftentimes that'll get you through it.
Let's talk about serious risks, though. You get a mild case, you think it isn't that big of a deal, but when we talk about E. coli, you really see some of the bad headlines. How serious is the risk in terms of what is really deadly?
Yeah, and there's 3 themes I like to talk about: fresh food, clean food, and well-cooked food. First, let me talk about vegetables and fruits. Those should be thoroughly washed in running water to get them clean before you do anything with them. And then with meats, you talk about your thermometer. That's very important. Up to 160 degrees pretty much kills most of the bacteria. Now, also leftovers. I like to keep things and eat them the next day or two, and my wife's pretty good about that. After 2 days, you got to throw that stuff out because even in the refrigerator, well-cooked foods can cause that. So, in summary, this can be a bad illness for a couple of days, but you can minimize it or even prevent it, hopefully forever, if you just watch what you put in your mouth. That's the key.
Good tips as always. Dr. David Winter from Baylor Scott & White, thank you for sharing your insight with us, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Mark.